think with Happydent, that's something that we've been trying to do for a couple of years now. We were trying to figure out a way to own Smile Day.
Get a sexy film. I said no, but film is Zariya hai. Like we have to really make the show a great one.
Huge shout out to Kinjal, Mansi. Shout out to Andy.
Shout out to Shubha.
Shout out to Shubha. Of course, shout out to Shubha. And Sarah.
That's a good way to go about client. Retain करके रखो जब तक उनका chase ना हो जाए.
Alright, 1, 2, 3, and action.
My mother is a teacher, तो उनकी आंखें ना permanently अब ऐसी हो चुकी हैं. मेरी शक्ल ना एकदम दोपहर जैसी है. लोगों को देखते ही अपनी दुकान बंद करने का मन करता है.
और फिर आपको डांस करना पड़ेगा सारा.
I have never had this experience. When teacher part came, I was amazed. So I laughed completely because it was interpreter. I enjoyed it. Yes, definitely. I want more and more shows like this.
Stand-up comedy is for everybody, and yeah, that's how it should be.
A lot of things I realized while working on this also, of course, the fact that we are very, like at least when we talk to people, we make sure we address them correctly, like be it their pronouns or be it what they like to be called. And I came from an understanding or like awareness that you shouldn't call deaf people deaf. You should say that they are audibly impaired or hard of hearing or something like that, right? But I spoke to all these people and they were like, no, we like to go by the term deaf. We don't think it's offensive. When you call us hard of hearing or audibly impaired, that kind of shows like we are unable to do something or we have restrictions, which is in turn offensive.
I think with Happydent, that's something that we've been trying to do for a couple of years now. We were trying to figure out a way to own Smile Day because it's a topical that none of the brands have really done it. And what works in marketing is if there's less clutter on a topical. I mean, all the generic topicals, everyone dives like a shark on a blood, right? Like all the brands will just jump on it like, I want to do this topical. I think Smile Day was one thing that we realized was something no brand has really owned. I think we've been trying to do that for 2 years now. I think last year also we did a great campaign, which was 32,000 which was there. But a very simple idea. And this year I think we started working on this idea since Feb itself. We're trying to figure out.
Almost a year.
Yeah. The brief was of course very simple, which is I think as Happydent, we had to own Smile Day, but more importantly, what has happened with Happydent is they've had like a slight change of how the brand has evolved from a brand that was known for sparkling white smiles, now a brand which also is going to use the smile to spread or do good, which was Dikha Batti Si Kar Baat Achhi Si, which is a new proposition. And I think that was particularly always becomes difficult when you have two propositions to fit into one idea, which is not only the creative tool of white light, sparkling white light, and how Happydent is known for smiles, but also the fact that it has to do something good. And I mean, in Indian context, it always becomes difficult when you're talking about social causes, civil issues, anything of that sort. You need to tread very carefully. And I remember rejecting a lot of ideas, and I'm sorry for that, which were maybe controversial or maybe were going into zones which are very difficult to crack. when we were brainstorming with the client, we realized that when we are trying to target a niche section of society and we had a plethora of insights, we wanted to do something for which is rooted in our pop culture, our Indian culture per se, which is stand-up comedy, which is so accessible for us that people go for stand-up comedy as much as they go for movies these days, right? So it was such a inherited, you know about it, but it is so inherited in our own culture. But we realized, and I think that inside that, it's still not accessible for so many people, especially the deaf. That was, I think, a powerful insight that we had, and we reached out and we realized that this idea had a lot of potential. So then we started reaching out to NGOs. We started reaching out to deaf people
And comedians.
to understand, and comedians to understand how this could happen. And a couple of really powerful insights came out, which was, I think, moved a lot of us. Which is one thing, if you remember, I think when we were speaking to the NGO ISH, one of them said that we usually sit with our family to watch Kapil Sharma, and they are laughing on the show, but we don't know what is happening because again, Kapil Sharma doesn't really have subtitles, and Kapil Sharma is such a huge loved show. Imagine there is a society segment that cannot even enjoy this such a beloved show. And I think that was a powerful moment for us to realize that if that is something that we can bring it to this society and make it accessible, and it's a form of art that can really move so many people. I thought there was something for it to make an impact.
Brief wise also, like how Chirag said, if I'm not making this up, but like I was on a meeting, right, with the client, and he was like, Yuvraj, so Smile Day is of course like our day, right, and we did something last year, we have to own it again this year. I said, okay Neeraj, what is the brief? He's like, brief ये है कि own करना है, क्या करना है वो हम figure करेंगे. So I was like, okay bro, and I think it sounds like a very open brief, right? But I love that because then I don't have 100 filters to think through, right?
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, you might agree on this, ki the more space we get to play, I think the better.
I have had like 50-50 experience. I feel like
You don't plug in Britannia over here.
you can't name clients. But no, but see, just to I don't know if it adds to this discussion as much, but open brief, when it comes from a place of understanding, when you know the client well, makes sense because I don't have to give you a brief. But at least I personally did not know the brand as much at that point of time. So an open brief
And sometimes you can get lost. And what happens is then you get into a territory where your ideas are not matching the business impact. And then you'll just get into this loop of rejection of ideas. So I think it's a balance. I think it's open brief is good when you are not chasing a particular KPI, because for Happydent we generally chase brand love. And it's easier to build brand love with creativity infused into the idea. But when you have a specific KPI matrix that you're chasing, like trials, awareness, that's wherein you need a little bit more specific brief. Because then you can get lost and there is possibility that your idea might not.
And especially for a creative person, I feel like it can be dangerous to have an open brief. I feel like even if it's an open brief and you have Mr. Chirag Shah to like sharpen it, then it's fine. But yeah, again, like has to come from a place of understanding. I think to a fair extent we knew Dikha Batti Si, Karbaat Achhi Si compared to a lot of other Perfetti brands was a much more established proposition, and I think we knew where we were headed, so I guess that's why it helped you.
Look, I knew I won't get lost in the process because I still knew my boundary of sticking to the proposition or the tagline and like manifesting that into action, which I think led to a lot of free thinking about how do I bring in goodness with Smile, because that's the whole point, right? And it's also in a way, like, as Chirag was also saying, like, it's difficult when you have two propositions to manifest them together, because everybody knows, they have seen the iconic chandelier wala ad, right? So everybody knows, like, oh, Happydent, bright light from the teeth, right? But for years now, they've also been going like Dikha Batti Si but Karbaat Achhi Si, which somehow in the communication always took a backseat, and I think this attempt where we did kind of balanced it out together, because I think that happened, and
Like I think now, then we look at it like the executed campaign, it feels like, oh, chalo, theek hai, we've done it. But if you look at the brand itself, the brand has evolved. Like Happydent ka naam lo, we all remember those like bright light ads and all the things. And it was all like very funny tonality. Abhi tak like do good, and like in this space, I think this would be the first campaign which have made a mark. So actually, if you look in retrospect, it's quite of very difficult ki ye kaise hua, jo bhi hai.
And even I think a lot of our ideas, either they were more indexed on the do good aspect, or they were more indexed on the white light. And I think that was the challenge we kept facing, or repetitive feedbacks, or where's the brand role, or where is the white light coming into the picture, because you cannot let a legacy go. That is what the brand is known for. So while you're doing good, or doing something for a social cause, you have to ensure that there is of course a role of brand in it. And I think a lot of our ideas were either inclining towards, and I think even Sign to Smile, there was an evolution of the idea also from the day we decided, okay, this has a lot of potential, but how do we ensure that idea doesn't fall flat, or has those points of crescendos that happen at every point, and there's a stronger brand role. I'm sure you maybe want to put a light on how it came up as as an idea, how it came up, and then
it's a funny story. It's a really real funny story. I was so back then, the team that we were working with, okay, so it was a work from home day. We were like at Pearl's place, me, Soham, Pearl, we were the team initially behind it, and we was like, okay, so we have to think of ideas, let's think individually in the same room, but let's think. and I'm like laying on the couch, okay, I'm like, what do I do? And then, I know it sounds very weird or like just kaise, but it just occurred to me like, oh, Smile Day. So, what makes me smile? What does make, like, what makes people smile? I was like, jokes. Yeah, why not? It's like, oh. But then I thought of that whole inside joke thing, that when I don't get a joke, I want to laugh. I know something is funny, right? I was like, okay, but I feel that for inside joke, but like for whom is it like a daily thing? And then I landed, oh, that aha moment happened, and I immediately got up, like sprung out of the sofa, sat down, wrote a thought dump, and I went to Soham, was like, bro, idea. and he read it, okay. And he read it, okay. He's like, okay, oh, yeah, and he's like, Paul, and then we all like had a whole thing, and and I think in that moment, 3 of us in the room were convinced that this is the one. So much that we didn't even think of.
It was the one for 3 people.
Yeah, and we were like we didn't even think of idea 2, because we were like, this is it, and then
it got rejected.
But in the end, this is it. But that's just thoda unbelievable, like no research as such, just like a thought occurring, but that's how it happened. And I think later on it made a lot of sense, because also stems from a lot of I think life experiences and interactions with people from the community, as I mentioned before. I am glad that personally this is what I also believe that we can do as people in advertising, to use our medium to push not just the envelope creatively, but also make a dent in the world. And I think it is a beginning for the brand, or also us as a whole, to do that. And that is how we came to the idea. We had multiple accessory changes ki isme ye karenge, usme wo karenge, but we dropped the ones which we felt were thoda gimmicky or didn't hit the nail. But now I think where we are and what we intend to do also, which you both can elaborate.
But I just wanted to add to this one thing, that I also feel like I was not in the room, and I'm just thinking, just want to call out the fact that immediately everyone appreciating the idea is actually a very good thing as well, because I know that we as creative, you and I both keep talking about it, we become the black hats and we overthink our ideas a lot. And I feel like if I were in the room, I would have pointed something out, and we may not have left the room with the idea.
Actually, I don't know, I think you've forgotten, but when we had the first discussion, you were actually against it. And then I think we got on like Kashyap and everything, and we had a discussion. So we were like, okay, let's give it a chance. And I realized, but I think it's good. Like, I think I'm also like a black hat in that way.
No, but it's a good thing that you pointed out, because this is one of those ideas, it's very easy to go wrong. Like you can fumble it up like colossally in a way. And that's what happened when I was pitching it to comedians also. Because out of all the people, when we said chalo ye karenge, everyone had the apprehension ki nahi ye karna hai वगैरह वगैरह. And I remember this conversation with Biswa, and I said this is the idea and this is how we're going to. He said ये कुछ बुरा निकलने वाला है, मैं नहीं करूँगा. बोलता I know you judge me कि मैंने in general life में बहुत टट्टी काम किया है. And I know that, but I think I'm not going to take a risk on this. He said that initially, but when the final output came out, he came to me and like he said I saw Anirban ka clip and all those things. That came out nice. I was wrong when I said it.
But as a comedian, you must have also, like when we got the idea to you as well, and we wanted you also to be a part of it. I'm sure you were at some point also scared because I mean there must be some apprehension.
I was scared till the day of the shoot, like just.
It has never been done in India, and something that's never been done. It's an unknown territory for you guys.
It is.
Plus, everyone has a different delivery style.
Yeah.
But what do you do when they can't hear you, right? So I'm sure there is a bit of doubt or apprehension that must have gone into your head, like how do I even work with this, or what kind of jokes even I work with, because I remember, I think we can come on to that later on, there was a lot of refinement of jokes also that happened while we were rehearsing. But do you want to mention what was your first
actually I can say that as comedians we are very anal about like how the show is going to be. Like recently I did a show, not show basically, I was supposed to judge it, but was उन्होंने musical show था and साथ साथ comedy डाल दी थी. It was supposed to be a musical show, people singing in the college, and बीच में एक comedian आके कर रहा है. Now for someone who came up with this idea, it's like, oh nice, we have music and बीच में break के लिए we have comedy. But when I see it as a performer, it's a horrible setup. Because music का mic कुछ होता है, you have high ceiling and all those things. Like we just see all those things. मतलब कि अच्छा mic यहाँ पे है, यहाँ पे होने वाला है, laughter कितनी सुनाई देगी. That is just, we just calculate when we go into a room. And we immediately know that the room is good or bad. So in general वो सब चीज़ें तो रहती हैं, and like now this is just a added obstacle in general that your audience basically can't understand you. Now you have to go through a medium who will like translate it and all the things. And of course timing हमेशा रहते हैं कि अच्छा this is the timing that we are like very strict about, and just this everything is like a curveball in this situation. So it was challenging for everyone that day. मतलब वहाँ पे I was like full of nerves, and with comedian we were sitting, and like also when the show was happening, like none of us had access to the room. Usually you are in a room, comedy show हो रहा है तो you also see अच्छा इसने ये joke किया, ये चल रहा है, okay this is how it's laughing.
It was one comedian at a time and they were
performing. So you also calculate, you like okay I'll riff this thing today and like this thing. So none of us had that day. And so in a way as a comedian it was challenging, and like that's why it's actually like we did a lot of things which in hindsight लगेगा कि चलो ठीक है, campaign था, video आ गया, execute हो गया वगैरह, but if you look at all the obstacles, it's kind of a lot. And definitely there are so many things we could have done better with the campaign, and like थोड़ा बहुत और चीजें हो सकती थी.
Yeah, but I think it was a little rushed. That's I think one good thing that everyone, like we go through it every time. Like even though like we got the inception of the idea in March, April, we got the final approval almost around September. And I think that's wherein the production team also came into picture, and there's so many things to be taken care of. We had not even reached out to the comedians which was there, and getting names like Upmanyu, Srija, Uruj, Usra, and like so many others, right? Anirban, getting those names in like a short time of 3 weeks max, I think. I think that was a lot of execution that was pending.
2 days basically.
And I think we had planned so much, right? And that's what we have to remember, that it never really goes according to how you plan. And we had planned rehearsals also, which I think happened on the day of the shoot.
किसी को game type का कर सकते, किसी को एकदम से point को trace करना, he just picks up the Happydent, then we just like let that person speak.
Oh, it's like a actual thing where you pass the pillow. Someone is supposed to talk.
Oh. Hey, it's a fun game, like.
Start with comedians.
So the
Should I
rehearsals
start? Yeah. But I want to say one thing, like now I have this, but like the initial point that you said that even like before this campaign that we didn't know what to say, which is the right word to say. Like is deaf the right word, or it's like audibly impaired and all the things, vagera. And the content that I put out on my handle and like any shit, that one reel that I have with like the sign language interpreter and like one joke that is there, and उसे जब डाला था, I was also looking at अच्छा इसके चलो कितने views हो रहे हैं, कितने likes जा रहे हैं. I'm like, oh shit, mine are going like the lowest. इसका इतना जा रहा है, इसका वैसे जा रहा है. But that thing like kept picking up. Like till date, I get like, okay, 3 people liked it and all those things.
Oh, wow.
But there's always like something like some Vinay1011_def likes it.
Yeah.
So they have that in the Insta handle also. I'm like, oh wow, this content is actually reaching them. And they're appreciating it. And like just after, and like I know this is not a media push, it's just organic going.
Yeah.
So that's a good revelation, and like I can still see it. Okay, you do a campaign, you don't know ki acha it has reached the people. Do people actually appreciate it? Like the numbers and all those things. But in this case, at least I personally know because it has come on my handle and the handle names also. So that is one interesting thing. And yeah.
But how was the preparation like? Because you had to, like, I mean, from Kethi's point of view also, we were working with a lot of comedians and this was a new thing for them. They didn't know what we were doing. Was there, like, how did it go?
It was really fun to see how everyone was in the rehearsals and in the prep as they were on shoot, because I remember we had one session with Shrija, and Shrija's delivery is very slow, it's very specific. So the interpreter wasn't entirely, like, it wasn't really like going well together, like in sync at all. So we were also, I remember Marshall being really scared. He's like,
bro, this is gonna tank, bro.
But I think it happened the other way around.
Exactly.
She was raised for this.
Exactly. She was the best, and because her story was just so universal, everyone could connect to it. Everyone was just like, yeah, this is it. And they laughed the most. So that was just fun to see. And even like others where we thought, we were very confident about some comedians. We thought, okay, Upmanyu will land because he always does. And his delivery is also just so slow, or it's picks up at a certain point. The interpreter also couldn't always like match up to that. Or sometimes she would be too good and kind of like steal the spotlight, which happened a lot like in the shows.
Sorry to interject, but huge shout out to Kinjal, Mansi and Sarah. Absolutely, bro. Like killed it. Like and I think we asked them also, right? Like the comedians, do you think they will steal all the love today? And they were like, they bet. Like I think so, and that actually happened. Also,
they had to have the right delivery, right? Because the audience is looking at them and not the comedian.
Correct.
And they had to match the delivery of the comedians, which was very interesting. That most of them like they did it, which is a good thing. It's difficult to do it in one go.
Like on the stage
for them also.
It was a very awkward POV. Usually I saw that I tell a joke and like I'm now waiting for a laugh. This time I was like, I tell a joke, then I'm just looking at her. Now you do the part, like laugh nahi aaya, I'm like, oh.
Uski galti
hai. Damn it, like, you can't just calibrate, but
But I loved how expressive everyone
was.
Like it was a different like level of what we saw in the rehearsals as well. On stage it was just like they were just on fire and constantly going one after the other. It was
Can we?
Yeah, that's the thing. No, none of us took a break. It just went on like a show. There was nothing like retake or something.
Like it's just a regular comedy show. You go to Habitat or anywhere, like you just sit. It's exactly functioning like that. It's just we have a different set of audience this time, and we're actually shooting the whole thing. But the process was as organic. And can we talk about the first laugh that came in the room? Bro, I had chills. Oh my god! I was like, I'm standing, okay, and like the joke was there, and I laughed immediately, right? And I think people in that monitor room also, everyone was laughing, and I'm waiting, like it'll land, right? But I'm like, okay, this is funny. Let's see if they find it funny. Did it translate? Because one of the major tensions that I had was like, we find it funny, we're laughing, but we're doing it for them. Are they having a good time? And when the first wave of laughter came, like this and like full. That's how it came to me. It's like, oh shit, bro. This
mental load. Take it in the end.
Oh my, there's like cold memory. I'm like, yeah, we did it, bro. Like, I don't need anything else. Like, I just like you know, it was great. And even like after the show, everybody is like taking pictures with the comics, and they are like coming in.
But there are so many good moments, right? Like we saw one of the female had like a tear in her eye.
Oh yeah.
There was this one person who started dancing in the middle of the show. Just to see that, I think was so impactful to each one of us, because for us, we know that this is something that we've enjoyed, but for someone who's enjoying it for the first time and to see those emotions come out, like it is not like a regular ad campaign. It was an event for a
particular
set of audience, and they were experiencing something for the first time, and the emotion that were coming out was so real. And I think that was when you look on the monitor, it makes you feel like, oh my god, like that's insane.
But the first laugh, I'm just curious, it came out with Andy.
Must,
you know?
So again, shout out to Andy in that way, because he kept it so conversational, right? I think that's the way also to approach that audience, because you also, like, a lot of your comedy is based on anecdotes or insights, right? But it kind of misses a particular chunk of their life also, because we live our lives a bit differently. So to be relatable to them, it's more of crowd work per se.
So that's the interesting thing, because I think jab comedians in the show were finalizing, I knew we should have Andy as a host. And like just to get someone, when you're making a lineup, ki, Achha, we have Upmanyu, we have Shrija, we have Rooj, just to convince someone that put Andy in, everyone's like, who's Andy? No one knows Andy basically. And I'm like, that was the most instrumental part, like the
Everyone, honest bro, that was my first point to him. I said, but Maddie kar lega na host, like,
and I was very sure, like, I was pushing like, nahi, ye host Andy ko chahiye, because I know Andy ka skill set in the Mumbai comedy circuit, like as a host, he can handle these situations. Like he actually like carried the show a lot. Till the end, jab bhi Andy aaya, people were like, just like excited to see him. And
without Andy's crowd work, I don't think the audience would have been so engaged and so excited about what was happening.
Because so we've still been in touch with ISH, we're still talking to them, and they've been giving us constant feedback. So I think couple of things, right? Like crowd work worked best because you were able to talk to them directly, and in fact they liked the fact that you're cracking jokes on them. You go into the show thinking, shit, this is going to be a delicate topic. They loved the fact that Andy was very comfortable with them. They loved that people were visually expressive because they have to understand expression. And just the relatability of the joke. If you're creating a joke on motherhood, then everyone experiences. So I think that is very good feedback for us also, because we want to do more.
It's also something that we extend to people we collaborate with in the future, because that also gives them a direction of learning from what we have set out to.
Even the skits went through a lot of changes, right? Like I remember we were supposed to have 15 minutes set for each of them. In the end it was 8 minutes, because there were two things. One, we realized that there's going to be a lag, and second thing, not all jokes can be converted to ISL. Right? And it's not the same. For example, a name has to be spelled out unless it has a core meaning to it. So, like, maybe you all can tell us more about it, because you all were the one executing it, and you all rehearsed with the comedians to cut their jokes, which is the most difficult part, I think.
Because
you hate someone telling you that you can't do this joke.
That is there. Whenever the joke is strike down, like people feel like, "Arey bhai, ye kaise kar diya?" Like, and when I was explaining my jokes, and we realized that a lot of jokes we write, a lot of it on, in a way, wordplay. For example, my joke, one part I'm saying era, second part I'm saying yug for the punchline. And now when you say it in sign language thing, era and yug, it's just the same thing. So I'm like, okay, this joke also goes out of the window.
And also callbacks. Like a lot of comedy is on the callback of something that was mentioned earlier, which does not work for them, because it's a lot of
the first part does not work, and you can't do the callback, so it doesn't work 2 times also. But the thing is, like, we went through like ups and downs of the emotion, because I remember initially when aisa tha ki how do we do it, like do comedians practice with the ISH worker, the people are like, do they basically send the script as vary ki koi script nahi bhejega. But when everyone said ki theek hai, you will send the script, I was chalo theek hai, this part is done easily, everyone is sharing their scripts. And uske baad, when they went through the script, they said something to Shrija, and Shrija was concerned. Shrija called me like, do I have to change my entire set? Because I was thinking this. I'm like, nahi, ye hua bolta, I think I have to something. I'm like, no, it's fine. And when they went through my set, they're like, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, okay, cool. And the day of the rehearsal, when they were like doing this thing, none of this worked.
We're like, oh shit, one act less. No.
That happened with quite a few comedians. So in the rehearsal room, they were like, oh, this is not going to happen, or maybe this joke over here, maybe change this word here, or like make this line easier to understand even for the audience.
But like from the beginning, I knew is show mein jo bhi hai setup hai, Shubham, that guy is going to kill. I was very certain about that.
He's a homeboy.
Shout out to Shubham.
Shout out Shubham. Of course, shout out Shubham.
You shout out, sabka ho gaya tha.
I'm waiting for people who don't know, he was the ISL performer.
Very talented, first of all. He's a model, and like he's a performer. He's like full on personality. Like all of us had nerves that day.
And
He was the most relaxed. He was just saying,
he's not a natural comedian. Let's address that he's not a natural comedian, and we asked him to perform.
He was performing for the first time. But I knew in this setup, like, this is going to work. And like, usse pehle we were also trying to write the material for him because he's first time performer.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't know what he's going to perform.
But he brought a lot of his nuances also.
But we basically kind of like, he told us story, we narrated it and all the things, and we wrote it down, vagera, because it also went to the performers.
Yeah.
It was actually fun writing
His
it
set
down.
also killed it. Like,
He killed it.
because people could
Most
relate, and it was
relatable.
directly done by someone who's doing a sign language. Again, no one has
His
done
writing
that.
also I did ki yahan tak itna likha hai, and like then you now just improvise. It's just all you. I know it's going to work.
I think,
and we don't even know if he improvised or not because we don't know that. No.
yeah, I couldn't like. He had the most hype, right? Because when he stepped on the stage and he said, "So I am actually one of you guys," and that also to do like we're doing a translator enabled show, right? But to also be like, okay, that whole model now aside, just bring somebody from the community, put them there, not just to like give somebody from the community spotlight, but also to maybe sow the seeds for an experience which is ISL first in a lot of ways, right? To do that, and for him to it's a double first for him because he's also doing comedy for the first time, but in such a setup also for the first time. And I think he killed it. He got the most hype. After one point, I realized that his jokes are over, but he's just like talking to people.
Yeah.
And even that is doing
That's
well.
a very interesting because all of us we were like कि अच्छा नहीं 8 minutes है 8 minute का 6 minutes cut down हो गया. So we were like all were crunched up. But uska whatever he performed, I think 8-ish minutes, 4-ish minutes. But his material was like 15 minutes, or it could be 20 minutes also, and which is just think of it from a abled comedian.
Yeah.
In fact, just like even throw it out, I'll just say like the most privileged comedian you can see in the country who has access to all the clubs. First time someone is going to the stage, you don't have 5 minutes. You take like a 2, 3, 4 years to make a tight 5. And that guy could coast on like 20 minutes of material. So I mean, in a way, it's just, revealing in a way. It's very interesting actually.
My favorite joke of Shubham's is what he just started with, where he won the audience over immediately.
Oh,
where
yeah.
he starts with, everyone goes up and says, "Oh, can everyone hear me?" And he was like, "Can everyone see me?" And everyone's hands went in the air. Like that shot is like very much stuck in my head. It's like,
and then he just takes
a
the
very
mic. He's
iconic
like,
thing.
"No need for this."
Yeah.
That was that. Yeah.
But
Also,
I'm guessing it, there's different set of production challenges when you are actually shooting a live event which needs to be converted into an ad campaign. That has its own challenges.
That was so when they came like with the script flow and we were initially talking about it, I love that the beginning and the end was very defined, but the middle there was no way for us to even write it out or
control
plan
it.
how it was going to be, because we didn't know how the event was going to go, what the jokes would be like, what the interactions would be like. So that was always a challenge that we were prepared for. Like, okay, this is going to happen. There are some moments that we will be able to use, some that we won't. What do we do if they don't laugh? We can just kind of put it together in a way that it just seems like a very wholesome and accessible show for everyone. And the tricky part about comedy is that it always works really well live because you're in a community and you're laughing with people. And on screen, because you're not with people who are already laughing, you don't have that cue to laugh immediately. So for it to even go from the event to screen was a very different process. But I think even with the edit, like we wrestled with it for a bit, but then we found a balance where we were able to highlight what the comedians were feeling as well as what the audience was feeling, and then showcase how comedy was accessible for everyone. And I think Anirban's line really like summed it up very well, where he said that comedy is for everyone, just because.
And that's how it should be.
That's how it should
I
be.
think like
That was like
it's
good.
registered in my head.
But I think in any other ad campaign, I think one of the most difficult part is to get the expressions out. Like when you have audience reaction, it is so difficult to get it right. I think the best part for us here was because it was a live event and it turned out so well. The reactions we got were so wholesome and they were so naturally good. And we anyways didn't have the time to actually go and get reactions. So it had to work out in some
We have
way.
that reaction of a guy standing by dancing this. Abhi tak main yaad ekdam to that shot, this guy.
Yeah, luckily our camera setup was very expansive. We had about 8
Oh
cameras.
yeah,
Yeah.
that monitor room was
Yeah.
crazy.
Just
It was
Like
like
good
some.
for my like ADHD. I'm like, oh yeah, everything is.
It looked like
कहाँ
some
पे देखूं मैं?
spy cam you're monitoring.
Yeah, no.
Security
Bro,
company.
like legit, the monitor room looked like some ऐसा spies लोग साइड में बैठे हैं, कुछ हो रहा है, हम लोग देख रहे हैं. But yeah, but I mean, even when we were asking questions to
Yeah.
those people, it was so because the responses also were. Like, we were talking to comics, so they're naturally funny in their conversation
Yeah.
also. And I had to like shut my mouth because I was like, if I laugh, the take is gone. But it was
and
very.
we had to be conscious of sound because everything
Yeah.
was being recorded.
At
So we were
one
just,
time
like,
I-
whispering notes to each other.
Yeah, at one
Andre,
time I
anytime
almost
he had to tell me
fell.
something, he was just like.
Yeah.
But one thing
I
we
remember
liked
one
was-
funny incident from the show because, and it's like nothing related to campaign, but वहाँ पे सब लोग थे and Bakshi was like कि can I ask Abhishek Upmanu to give
Get
a
a-
recording to my girlfriend? I'm like अभी नहीं
Yeah.
पूछना, show के बाद पूछना. And he waited for it like for like it went on for 4ish 5ish hours and उसके बाद से बोला can I have नहीं.
I was like, ah, shit. But, but it's also kind of cool to meet these people I've
Yeah.
seen on YouTube or like some live show, to work with them, to know them as a person also. I think an added belief in what we're trying to do because these are people who run this front
Yeah.
and them also reinstating belief in your idea and wanting to support that is great. And yeah, and like,
They were so game for everything.
they were so, yeah,
The
yeah.
opening bit where they actually had to act, like my producer was a bit like, what am I gonna? It's like proper acting in this like one bit. But they were all so good. They totally like committed to everything and they were very open and very. Just
Location
The
like,
had its own
outtakes were
challenges.
very funny. Some of the ones that
But you know what? The location, I'm so glad that in the end it was a very close space because the audience never felt like they were away from
Yeah.
what was
yeah,
happening. Like everyone was engaged.
it's not a set. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
You can't do
exactly.
this on NCPA.
Yeah. The best part was like how Andy would just, if you're in the last row, if you're in the front row, whatever you are, you're
Yeah.
part of the show.
Yeah.
You are, this is for you. So
Mm.
that was something.
And he made sure he's going to like multiple
Yeah.
people because I remember in the monitor room you
You
were
like-
constantly talking to the and your DP was talking to
Yeah,
set up
everyone.
1 2
Yeah,
8
yeah.
Yeah.
तू अभी कर तू अभी
Because-
close जा तू
yeah,
अभी white जा.
Exactly, because we had to
was
capture
crazy.
the emotions and the reactions as it was happening. So it was almost
Yeah.
like trying to respond in real
It's like
time.
watching
That's funny
cricket.
because the
Yeah.
venue was this, no, Jeff Goldberg studio.
Yeah.
And at one point, अब shoot चल रहा, we don't know, चलो ठीक है. Comedians are there. We got a basic introduction to everyone, and I also know everyone. अच्छा ये Shabanks है, Zysich person, all the things वगैरह. So someone coming to room, I'm introducing. Okay, yeah, meet Nikita. Okay, yeah, meet Careful. Okay, this is Ayush and all the things. Suddenly one person comes in. He says, if you guys need anything, just let me know. I'm like, who are you?
कौन है?
I'm Jeff Goldberg. I'm like, oh, Jeff Goldberg is alive? Okay, ठीक है, we'll just reach you. But I think
You
we
think it's some
sorted.
ancient guy who's
Yeah,
died
yeah,
and passed it on to people. Jeff Goldberg is alive. Just
But
stick
the
to a
outtakes, I
format.
want to know. I mean, there were like kind of bunch of funny stuff. Like everyone said,
My first cut was 3.5 minutes long because I just wanted. There was so much in the whole show, so much that
Yeah.
we had captured. There were so many
Yeah.
jokes that were just really good and like really funny.
yeah.
And there was also just like a bit about Upmani that I found really funny where he was just talking about what he thought the show would be like and what it was actually like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he came in with like some confidence, not a lot,
Hmm.
but some. And then he's like, मेरा तो कुछ भी नहीं चलता. मैं तो जा रहा हूँ. Bye. And it was just very cool. But then, even like as we were editing it, I found that like Uruj's jokes, like some worked, some didn't.
Mm.
Everyone had that a very different experience like from each other,
Yeah.
which was.
And they had to
was
adapt on the fly so much.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever seen, like, because they are the most like celebrated names and all that, you would never think they would miss, right?
Yeah.
But I'm seeing them miss and then adapting to that. And I was like, oh, like,
Yeah.
he like me. Yeah. But it was great. And I think, like, even when the thought came and when we were at the venue, right? And even in conversation with a lot of people, we realized that we never thought, like, why is it not a thing yet,
Mm.
right? Because
Yeah.
everyone who heard it for the first time, everybody who was there, they were like, yeah, like, I've been excluded from the experience, but it's a great question ki, like, this should be the norm. And if you look abroad, like music festivals,
They
they,
always had
they have a translator on the side. Even abroad comedy shows now have started to like incorporate that, but I looked at the Indian landscape and I was like I was at Lollapalooza, right? And I didn't see much of live translation happening anyway. I was like, so, and then we looked at the numbers.
That is the most inclusive festival, no?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Lola comes from like an international space and you would expect it to be of that level.
Yeah.
And again, like, it was a great show nonetheless, but I felt like even there's at least in the Indian context, there's some lack of probably recognition of this as like very simple solve to incorporate more people. And and then we looked at the numbers and it was like whopping like 65 million, right? I was like, yeah, that's a lot of people missing out on some simple thing like comedy or like music and
that's always a profound realization when we just realize ki, oh, this is something that we take for granted so easily.
Absolutely.
And like I read a tweet somewhere someday, it was said ki all of us are just one accident away from disability. That's it. And we still don't make things, and like we have stuff which is accessible to everyone in a way, and this is an initiative. So that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of people just look at this campaign, ki okay, theek hai, you did it, but is it solving that thing? I'm like, right now we need a lot of these initiatives actually happening, so that the conversation starts. And like some acts, like at the end of the day, we are an advertising company. We are not the government who can actually make policy level changes and all the things.
And the awareness is not only restricted to deaf people, right? Because I think Pranay, who was with the NGO, he mentioned that this can be applied to any art and any segment. Is that the idea is that there's forms of art which is not accessible to segments of society. It could be paintings for the blind, it could be comedy for the deaf people, and so many other things that is not accessible.
Poetry, so many
spoken poetry for the deaf as well. So there's so many art forms that we get to enjoy. We take it for granted, we get to enjoy, which there are segments of society who are not able to enjoy. I think the idea was that even if this led to one more act that could create that sort of awareness, or at least get people to appreciate what they have, which is a part of the culture, it itself goes a long way.
Yeah, because we spoke to, because we were talking to the Habitat people, and they had in fact seen Anirban's clip. And we didn't have to sell an idea. They said that's actually something I'm game for doing. So that's the advertising.
Now I've had conversations with comedians also after this is done. So matlab, I know the vibe, how it is done, and like people are like
they don't need another brand to do another campaign
to do this.
It's
just
they will
take the learning from this and put it in your own shows and get good.
In fact, Shrija kept on asking like, give me the entire clip. I want to release the entire footage on my YouTube channel. I actually like the experience so much that if you have that thing, I don't care if it just joke killed or bombed or whatever it was. Give me the entire footage. If it's possible, I want to put it on my own YouTube channel.
And all
so that's like
Was there anything in the reception that like surprised you guys?
Because
about when the film was out, was there any like reaction that you guys were like, oh, I didn't see this coming?
I think the response we got from the not just the community but everyone around. A lot of people reached out to me saying, oh, were you behind this campaign? And I said, no, my team, but no, but it was good to know. But I mean, to be very honest, out of all the campaigns that I've done, I think this was the most shareable campaign. People were proud to share a campaign like this, and I saw so many people who had nothing to do with advertising also were sharing the campaign. Usually what happens is I did a campaign, and of course people who are my peers etc who are part of advertising, who understand the campaign, usually share. But here I had like random people who were sharing this campaign on their LinkedIn pages, like a lot of students etc who were just sharing this on the LinkedIn page, which is so wholesome. I mean, it was a reception that I didn't of course expect for something like this, and I think even the shareability numbers on some of the LinkedIn post was really great. Of course, apart from YouTube, where we got lot of good comments, and Instagram, where we sent a lot of bite-sized content as well, and we got a lot of good reception. But on LinkedIn, this was something that I didn't expect.
Well, that's simply because there was no product to sell. Like you will share it because it's not an advertising campaign, and which is what we also enjoyed, the fact that we're doing this, sure, like, we'll win the brand's trust, and
it's a brand back thing,
but like we felt nice. We had that moment when they were sharing testimonies, like, oh shit, like somewhere it was that
Yeah,
You know
bro,
what we
kuch
wanted to
kiya,
do?
bro. My God.
Because you were very clear that, you know, I
Yeah.
don't want to include anything that makes this very staged. I want it to be real. And we're like, yeah, we did it.
I think that's
It's
credit
real.
to clients also.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
absolutely.
sure.
Because I think we usually get so many pushback from clients.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, you include this, where is my brand, where is my brand product?
Yeah.
And like if you realize the product is nowhere to be seen in the entire.
It's just one logo.
Yeah, you
man.
have to be grateful like when the client is not pushing
Yeah.
for those things.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like
And like, it also shows like the relationship and trust as well, right? Because he was in the monitor room, right? But he was like, Yuvraj, ye theek lag raha hai na? I'm like, हाँ, it's like, कुछ ठीक है. And he's now, after that, he's just like sitting watching the show.
Yeah.
I'm like, great, like that's where you want to be as a creative or just as a person, right? He trusts me to do my job well. I'm gonna kill it, and it's gonna come out well. And even like, also in the comments in the reception space, right? I realized that a lot of people were asking for more.
Yeah.
And these are people who are deaf, but also people who are not. But they want to see the whole experience. Rather, they want to be in that room next time, right? Which shows that it's still like we've barely scratched the surface. And there was that. There was a lot of, I think also a lot of work that we do. There's a lot of like, you know, you get a lot of feedback and whatever from the industry, but in my personal experience, right? I've never seen my friends share brand campaigns,
Correct.
Yeah.
right? And like the greatest, sweetest films also that come out from a lot of brands, right? I would ask my friends, hey, did you see that post? They're like, no, bro, I don't even follow them. And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, whom do I talk to? But this was something I randomly came across my friends only putting up, and or like when I put it up, they saw the whole thing. I don't. There was some hook or there was some magnetic thing about it, and they were like, bro, just watch this. You did this, or I'm like, yeah, we at Shabang we did this, and I was like,
Fall back. Wouldn't have worked.
I'm not a comedian, but yeah. So and then, yeah, we did this, and it's like, bro, like this is sick, and like again, as I mentioned, like that this whole thing naturally tying me back to a bunch of my college seniors who are from the community, and yeah, it just like made me realize that again, you don't need to really push a product or you don't need to sell something. You just need to give people something that they like to see or give people something that they would want to experience again in anything that you do, and I think that's going to keep them bringing back to you and make them love you more. And I'm glad that I was able to do it with all the people on board. Also, Careful and Nikita, these people
Shout out.
shout out. Yeah, great help, a lot of masti.
Nikita were like the back.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was just so steadfast, like from the beginning, from the event to making sure that everyone felt really included and like part of it was
Yeah.
just so much like love given to this whole
Yeah.
idea.
See all these shout outs, if it gets edited out, I will send it separately.
We
Credit
did it,
list
okay?
around it.
Yeah, yeah.
But that is something that surprised me as well. Like what Chirag was also saying, that people are sharing it without you really expecting them to, and it was just everyone.
Yeah.
And everyone that I spoke to from like within the comedy community also,
Yeah.
they were like, even if they didn't have like a very big part in it, they were like, yeah, no, it was great. I sent it to everyone.
Yeah,
And they were just-
yeah. I think we also got saturated, right? Like
Yeah.
because we were at the other table constantly looking at
Yeah, once it was out of our
Yeah.
bubble, we realized
Yeah.
that, oh, no, it's saying something. It's
Yeah.
connecting
Yeah.
with people. It's
And I think when the
got real.
comedians went out of the way in a lot
Yeah.
of things, in terms of deliverables, in terms of even, I think.
yeah, I think
Everything.
everyone had a good time because over there, I've realized to do a show you have to do a vibe check also in general that okay, I'm putting in this person together. Like, do they have a nice vibe? And it was actually a very great vibe with Anir, Banshija, Aruj, Abhishek. Everyone had like fun hanging out with each other and like.
Yeah,
they're
did
like,
they tell you something, give any feedback, or like, did they later on tell you something about the experience?
The good and the bad.
But the good thing was, yeah, like everyone had fun on that thing. मतलब हर किसी ने वही बोला था कि I came to the venue and I just started enjoying the day itself. Like, okay, there's fun comedians over here, everyone chatting, everyone sharing funny stories. So it's like a fun atmosphere. And then there's nerves for the show, but you do the show and like you come out, you just share it. So that is important. Like it's not like a ऐसा नहीं है कि ओ ये set है यहाँ पे shoot हो रहा है आपका ये time है. There's no anxiety about all those things. I think so because. A lot of these comedians that I got on board for this thing in general, they are the ones who just say no to brand deals. Like the Uruj first thing was like, I don't want to do it because this is something very brandy and all things. And especially also the same with Abhishek also. सो फिर वही है कि यू जस्ट डोंट नो कि कहाँ पे कोई चीज़ टिक ऑफ करेगी कि अरे मैं ये क्यों ही कर रहा हूँ, इससे अच्छा मैं जाके अपना कॉमेडी शो कर लूँ एंड ऑल दोज थिंग्स वगैरह. So in general, the vibe was good, especially because of the selection of the comedians which were there. People who said yes to us in general, and there would have been like more people who would have said yes, I think. So like Prashasti, she said she liked the concept, but she was not here in the city, and we could have heard it was just
2.0.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall like pre also show we all had like jitters. किसी को नहीं पता था कैसा होने वाला है वगैरह वगैरह. I'm glad you all are on boarded with this. The day of the event, they were like all kind of fine, and after like it was a nice show.
And there were people who were honest ki not my cup of tea and I want to stick to the format that I best do, but they were still glad that they were part of it.
Yeah.
It's still a step towards inclusivity.
Like, I still remember so many jokes जो हमें अच्छे लगे थे उस time पे edit पे first edit and all those things वगैरह which came, and like it didn't make it. I think अनिर्बन का था, बच्चे बहुत अंदर से दिल के साफ होते हैं क्योंकि वो साबुन खा लेते हैं. So
I think one thing on the edit was what I think I realized is I think the initial script that we wrote again because you don't write a script for this, I think changed quite a bit. There was a lot of things we thought would be good packaging for the script, and then we realized you just got to let them hear the jokes, see the jokes. You got to let them
Stick to that line.
see the testimonials. You know, that is the meat of it, and unnecessary packaging and storytelling from the brand will not carry this film.
The minute we were trying to stick to like our storyline, like what we had to like hit A, B, C, it would have not like the emotion wouldn't like come through as strongly. The minute we were just like, okay, what is the audience feeling? What is the comedian doing? That's it. That's when it really came together.
Also, there's one decision like initially when the lineup was prepared, we were like, okay, Shubham is going first, he do this, and like then all the people, I'm like, no, just put Shubham in the end. That's how it will flow well. That's how the show will work well. Trust me on that thing. I'm glad everyone took that judgment basically. But in general, how you're saying, no, especially a comedy show when you do it live, see, all of our jokes are scripted because we do it in general a lot of time on the stage and we do it. The entire act of stand-up comedy is you have to make it look spontaneous. That's the act. You just said this joke. It's not a rehearsed joke. Oh, acha, I read it, I'm reading it. It just don't work that way. It just should feel like. So a lot of it, we had preparation done all along. सबकी script भी ready थी, ये भी flow chart, सब कुछ ready था वगैरह. But the magic of it to like recreate on camera is like just to make it look all spontaneous. And I think that's a good thing. Like all of it came together, like with the direction, production, and everything, with the audience, with the comedian, Shubham, everyone, ISH.
That's what I think it's over.
It looks like a very spontaneous the stand-up product which is there. It's not like a short thing. And you can clearly see there are a lot of brands who are doing like stand-up thing. You can clearly see there are a lot of like films which are like कि oh अच्छा इस day पे इस बंदे ने कुछ किया है, and like they're trying to plug in those jokes and all those things. So.
But you know the thing that you were saying about how the comedians like wanted to be there. The three of us the day before the shoot stressed because we might not get things as organically as we wanted to, and everyone like gave us their time, wanted to be there, stayed back a little bit extra, made sure that they were there. It was lovely.
That's a fun part for me because I know from being involved in the campaign, there's like so much of organic stuff of this campaign, like a 1 hour of outtakes, which is there, which is actually good content, which we haven't even used it in general, and that's how we kind of put it out. And like this product is like loved by everyone, but like we still have actually a lot.
Even the people from the community in the end, we didn't have time, but everyone wanted to give the feedback. Like, nahi, mera bhi lo. And I'm like, okay, we'll try to take as many as possible.
We overshot the.
And there were so many people who were like forming a line. And like, guys, sit down, we'll call you for this. But everyone wanted to express their opinion and of course thank what they saw, and that's when a lot of things came out as well. Like some of them were Upmanyu fans because they've seen him on Instagram but never really enjoyed his jokes, and this is the first time that they were able to.
There's also just the fact that these people, when I spoke to them or even the bites that we took, right, they're like, we were like debating whether we should also come because like what's the point, right? It's just another comedy show, right? I don't think they were clearly aware like of how the experience is going to be, or they didn't have much confidence in it. But I think they completely did a 180 flip because when they left, They're like, I'm glad I came here. When are you doing this again?
They stayed by 1 hour.
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
When we were taking bites of the comedians,
Yeah.
they stayed 1
Stayed
hour
back
just
1 hour.
like.
Just again saying
impatiently.
from a normal stand-up kind of show, the toughest thing is like, oh shit, audience bored ना हो जाए. कई बार ऐसा show होता है ना कि show अच्छा 10 minute का spot and like 2 घंटे बाद someone was going on stage, he's like, oh shit, the audience is bored out of their mind. They've just seen everything so many times. But in this show, they were actually after the show they were like,
They had an appetite
they were
because
excited
it was,
after the show.
they had an appetite because it is happening for the first time. So
Yeah.
for them, they had an appetite for joke that they had.
I got my
They
award.
those सारे awards. I think that's बात कर दी है.
Oh, you all didn't hear? I just like, I got my award.
I got my award.
Cheesy.
What? Wow, I legit said it to you at
Say it to
the.
camera.
I got my award.
Are you talking about the video for the girlfriend?
No, I didn't get it. That was not the award. Arey bro.
I understand.
On ground impact.
Yeah. But damn fun. I hope we can. I mean, we're trying to extend it, but we're trying to expand it also from like Happydent side, right? Or like just collaborations. But I would love for me to walk into a show one day where also this was something I was discussing with them. Ki there's inclusivity and then there's accessibility, right? So doing it with just 40 people in the room, all of them deaf, and doing it with 100 people in the room where it's a mixed crowd of, you know.
60-40.
Yeah, the goal
70,
is to
whatever.
be there where this format becomes the norm, and like I'm sitting next to somebody who is, let's say, deaf, but we both laugh. Maybe there's a lag, but we do, and I think that will be an ideal space to be. And I think this is started to, you know, roll the rock, but we'll see. I think I have hopes for this one. Also, it's great to have people who are directly related to the cause we are taking up. We didn't have that per se, but I think in that case, a great, soundboard was Shubham, because he was very free to give his 2 cents or run things past him, and I think it was a great thing to have him as like a checker of sorts. Ki, if I want to do this, is it sounding wrong? Is it going to offend people? Is it something we shouldn't say? And to get that screening from him, kind of, I think he's like he acted as a part of the team only.
Yeah, but I think he came towards the later end. I think the fact that when we started discussing the idea itself, because I think one thing is very important for us to realize also, and as advertisers and marketers, is that there are a lot of campaigns, a lot of brands who've tried to do something good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's a very thin line between trying to create an impact and just doing good or just creating awareness, but being able to find a balance between also creating impact and conversations, but also doing something that a set of audience is taking back with them. I think that experience also that we all had was, I think, great, and I think it is our own challenges that how do we even execute or even plan an event for an experience that we ourselves have never had.
Yeah.
Right? That was, I think, a tough part because we didn't know how do we go about everything.
Yeah. We all did like a lot of preparation.
Like for example, I think when we started, we thought, we had some idea of capturing the laughter of people and then creating a meter out of it or something like that. And I think there was a point where we empathized with the audience and realized, and it was a very unique insight that usually, deaf people would laugh not with a lot of noise, but they have different expressions to laughter.
It's more like this, right?
Or just a different way of expressing their laughter and smile, and we had to make those tweaks and understand. And
it was very tailored. Every step of the way, we had to tailor fit more for them, and that also acted as a learning process for us. So I think when we started, maybe we all barely knew about the community and its ways, but I think we all ended with knowing a bunch of important things that also in daily life helps us to be kinder towards them or be more inclusive towards them.
Yeah.
So that personally worked out well. I think we all took away a lot of personal learnings, and also to have great partners like Shubham or ISH to
the ISH people were like a kind of nice sounding board also, like in the entire process, and I'm glad we started the process with them. Like way before the campaign, like discussing things with them and like involving on the step of the video.
I was
Marcy and
surprised
Kinjal.
to know ISL is different in different parts of India itself. Like
Yeah.
there are,
Yeah.
like how we have dialects in languages.
Yeah.
ISL has different signs in different states, which was surprising because at the end we think it's one language, right? But then the fact that there's a particular word will have a different sign in the south, west, and north
Yeah.
was so surprising to me. And I was like, then how do you guys, figure out like what is? And one of the things that they mentioned on the day of the shoot is that actually the language is not yet evolved as we would expect, which is a surprising thing. Imagine just the communication has not evolved. Like the language itself is not evolved to that extent of standardization across India.
Standardization is not there, but like it's like there. When I said ki okay, because when I was telling the jokes and all those things, I'm like, ये translate हो जाएगा बोलते हैं. Translate हम सब कर लेंगे. We have translation for everything.
Yeah. Like
That
my
like
greatest discovery was
yeah.
Anil Kapoor.
Anil
is
Kapoor,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was.
So the translation itself is a joke if you look at it.
Yeah, because they come from their context, and I'm sure a lot of these things are passed on.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't need necessarily always written rules of language. I think it's
The
just
one
carried on.
some of the profound things when we're just talking to them, like the difference between like, let's say abled people, when we have a conversation versus like deaf and mute people, when they have a conversation, they're like, your conversation just end in 5 minutes. We just actually don't stop talking. We just keep talking and talking and talking. हम लोग बात करते ही रहते हैं. It goes on and on. I'm like, wow, I never looked at it this way, but
Yeah, well, spin-off on that was the Shubham joke, right? Where he's like, two people are talking, I blink and I miss, like, you know?
Yeah.
Because क्या sign किया बीच में समझा नहीं. Yeah, and also, like, you need to be so focused while talking. Like, I can look there, but I can still talk to him, right? Because the conversation is like there. But for them to be dedicated and paying attention.
yeah.
And then the fact that, oh, I was like signing and talking to a friend, and then a beautiful girl walks by, and I was like, oh shit, I missed the conversation. That was also a part of the joke, right? I was like, so these are things that to hear, again, for me, it's a first time thing to get these insights from their lives. And if it's that funny to me, imagine hearing that from somebody who actually has lived the same life. And
That's a very interesting point, because now like the entire campaign was about ki okay, we want to make comedy accessible to them. But in process we discovered actually like the Shubham's joke. They are so funny. Like abhi bhi hum log aise bol rahe hain, we are still laughing at them.
yeah.
And there's like so much more material from their voice which is like there, and like we are actually not accessible to that.
Yeah, I think
So in
it'll
a
be
way
great. Sorry.
I mean there has to be some both way sort of thing which should happen in a way. We just like realizing it.
Yeah, I think one cool thing to also do could be like just flip what we did, right?
Yeah.
Right? And like bring, let's say, like bring Shubham only, like do his set, but now we get it like voiced out, right?
Yeah.
Or better, we learn ISL, whatever. But just to do that, because I think they have great stories to tell.
He made this into a creative brainstorm. Okay.
Yeah.
2.0 of the campaign. And Shebang 2.0.
What if? Bro, I think the best ideas are like what if, because this was also that only. I was like, bro, what if? I was like, bro, did you realize? But yeah, also I realized that sure we did it for comedy and all that, but this is sort of the solution or like the setup that we initiated is kind of universal despite like comedy in other ways, because I was flying back right to Bombay and I'm on the plane and I you know like the air hostesses like they do their so Viman ke is taraf dwar this that right. I was like okay, even if I can't see her well, I can hear the audio, right? And even if I can see her, I can't hear it. I can still make do understand ki acha idhar se hai whatever, right? But then I thought like okay, like again this is a very free flowing thought, but like, I was like, what if like are people from the deaf community understanding this, right? Because they can't hear the announcement or anything, so they're completely dependent on what the host is saying, but it's not in ISL. So how much of that can you get?
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, bro, like this is like not a problem, but it's like there's a gap in a lot of forms across a lot of areas. But the solution is quite simple that way. So I was like, there's a lot of room outside of comedy also, and yeah, like I think sometimes.
I guess the intent, like I don't think so any of us in general try to be more inclusive in our day-to-day behavior. And I have just this funny story which I just remember from the news and all those things, because when Stephen Hawking was coming to India, he wanted to visit Jantar Mantar, the observatory hai, because wo sab cheezein and all those things. So they installed a special ramp for him so that he can go.
Yeah.
And once he was gone, they destroyed that ramp. I'm like, just let it be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the news. Then hata diya. I'm like, bhai rehne do. Kuch to tumne bana diya at least. Now people can actually come. But it was just for Stephen Hawking one day. Now.
I think as empathetic as we were to everyone, they were as empathetic to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they were
no.
so patient with us, right? Because like they can see we're struggling to understand them, but they're like, okay, so.
It's like this.
Yeah,
and this is
yeah.
how you go
So,
about
okay,
it.
okay,
It's
okay. Yeah.
It was actually Shubham who was calming my nerves. Like, chill, you got
Yeah.
it. I'm like,
Yeah, I didn't see him practice at all.
Yeah, he
He
was
seemed like
very
very
relaxed. I'm
natural.
like, Zen type का जो mentality होता है उसे show से पहले I'm like, he is in the moment. वहाँ पे भी कर रहा है, ये भी.
I remember at the end of the day also, like I think unconsciously we were just signing to each other.
Oh, there was a lot of animation after that day.
Like,
Oh.
hey, you know what, this thing, and we couldn't
Yeah.
talk to each other because we had to be quiet for it to,
Yeah.
the sound to be alright. So we
No,
were
but I
just
think the effect was there for a day or two.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
all
for
got
sure.
animated in a way we talked to each other.
It was just
Because we realized the
yeah.
importance of gestures and signs.
Yeah, and like to add to that, like of course, like Kate Keys are behind the camera over there. I am somewhere near the stage,
We're
right?
talking to
And
each other.
yeah, and we can't talk, right? Because shoot's happening. So we're like, and then she's like, yeah, and I realized I am signing differently, not ISL, but it's still sign. And then there's another sign happening right in front of me,
Yeah.
and people are talking across the room,
And
but
there's-
nobody's getting like disturbed or anything. I was like,
We
bro,
all
this
got
is.
confused also. Some
Yeah.
everyone just understood each other.
Yeah, it was great. It was one hell
Oh
of
yeah,
an
there was that
experience.
one moment after the show where I remember Chirag was still there in the background, okay, because we were capturing very naturally the testimonials,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and it's a silent room. Everyone is talking because the audience is talking in sign,
Yeah,
but Chirag doesn't have anyone to talk to, so he's just pacing around because he can't open his mouth. We wanted it to be silent. We were getting those shots, and I was like, wow, that's so beautiful in a way because they can talk and we can't, and it's kind of like that flip, and I was just like, oh, this is great. I mean, not to like laugh at your
No,
misery,
it's
but
okay.
I was like, I think it had a lot of these moments which
yeah,
I really liked.
yeah.
And I think it's only because I feel like to that point of like empathy and how you approach a campaign like this, I think you have to have that lens of sensitivity from the get-go, and you have to keep reminding yourself. First of all, this is not an advertising campaign per se. It's
Yeah.
you're doing something very different. So we do something in and out every day. You have to switch that off a little bit and put on this different shoe. In the film also, we were very clear that because I remember, at least not with you, I think we were on the same page. At least with the producer, we were still a little bit. He was like, "I'll get a sexy film." I said, "No, but film is Zariya hai. Like we have to really make the show a
Yeah.
great one, and we'll get the film."
Yeah.
So I think, and you have to be okay changing the script because they pretty much will end up writing the script. So I think like in each aspect you have to make sure that you let go of the reins a little bit and you let it be very real.
Yeah,
This was the
And that was
most,
great.
like,
for real,
laugh-
for
You
real.
don't keep getting these campaigns.
Yeah,
Ready?
yeah, layered. Okay.
One,
Kafi.
2,
Yeah.
3.